Hello everyone, today is December 9th, 2015. This article from Activist Post, December 9th, 2015, the global economic reset has begun. I will link to it below, but I'm going to read parts of it that are just wow. In my last article, I outlined the deliberately engineered trend toward the forced harmonization of national economies and the monetary policies, as well as the ultimate end goal of globalists, a single world currency system controlled by the International Monetary Fund, and by extension, global governance, which internationalists sometimes refer to in their more honest public moments as the New World Order. This schematic for the New World Order, according to the admissions of the internationalists, cannot possibly include the continued existence of U.S. geopolitical and economic dominance. The plan, in fact, requires the destabilization and reformation of America into a shell of its former glory. The most important element of this plan demands the removal of the U.S. dollar as the de facto world reserve currency, a change that would devastate our current financial structure. I outlined with undeniable evidence the reality that major governments, including the BRICS governments of the East, are fully on board with the globalist agenda. There is no way around it. The BRICS, including Russia and China, have openly called for a global monetary system centralized and dictated by the IMF using the SDR basket, which stands for Special Drawing Rights. This same plan was outlined decades ago in their Rothschild-owned magazine, The Economist. We are witnessing that plan being implemented in front of our very eyes today. For the past couple of years, the current head of the IMF, Christine Lagarde, has used the phrase global economic reset often in her speeches and interviews. There is some deliberate ambiguity to this notion, but after sitting through hours upon hours of her most boring and repetitive discussions in globalist think tanks such as the Council on Foreign Relations, the consistent message is pretty straightforward. If anyone can stand to listen to this woman's carefully crafted prattle and well-vetted half-truths for more than 5 minutes, I suggest they watch this particular speech given in January at the CFR. Her message on the global economic reset is essentially this: collective cooperation will not just be encouraged in the New World Order, it will be required, meaning the collective cooperation of all nations toward the same geopolitical and economic framework. If this is not accomplished, great fiscal pain will be felt and spillover will result. Translation: due to the forced interdependency of globalism, crisis in one country could cause a domino effect of crisis in other countries. Therefore, all countries and their economic behavior must be managed by a central authority to prevent blundering governments or rogue central banks from upsetting the balance. It is interesting how the IMF's answer to the failings of globalization is more globalization. In other words, Lagarde would argue that while we are in the midst of an international system, we are not centralized enough for such a system to succeed. The IMF points out correctly that the economic situation around the world is not stable and could revert once again to the chaos of the initial 2008 crash. The Bank for International Settlements, the primary hub of central bank control, has also given numerous warnings this year on the potential for a disaster, including in its last quarterly report. The warnings of the BIS in particular should not be taken lightly. Some analysts are indeed taking them lightly. The BIS knows exactly when financial disasters will erupt because it wrote the central bank policies that created those same events. For example, in 2007, the BIS released a warning that perfectly predicted the elements of the derivatives and the credit crisis in 2008. What these globalist institutions will not tell you in a direct manner are the real causes and motivations behind the inevitable next stage in the ongoing destruction of the current economic system. The global reset is not a response to the process of collapse we are trapped in today. No, the global reset as implemented by central banks and the BIS, IMF are the cause of the collapse. The collapse is a tool, a flamethrower burning a great hole in the forest to make way for the foundations of the globalist ziggurat to be built. As outlined in my last article, economic disaster serves the interests of elitists. When you look at these actions by the Federal Reserve and the U.S. government in particular, questions arise. Is it stupidity that is causing them to sabotage the golden goose, or is it hubris and greed? Their actions are clearly facilitating a program of incremental implosion, yet they continue to ignore the obvious why. The people who ask these questions are operating on a false assumption. They have assumed that the international bankers and puppet politicians that have control have any interest in protecting the longevity of the United States. The fact is they do not. They have no loyalty whatsoever to the U.S. system, nor do they see the U.S. as too big to fail. This is utter nonsense to globalists. Rather, they see each nation and central bank as a piece in the game, much like chess. Some pieces have to be sacrificed in order to gain a better position on the board. This is all that the U.S., the Federal Reserve, and even the dollar are to them, expendable pieces in a larger games. The U.S. is now experiencing the next stage of the Great Reset. Two pillars were put into place on top of an already existing pillar by the central banks in order to maintain a semblance of stability after the 2008 crash. This faux stability appears to have been necessary in order to allow time for the conditioning of the masses towards greater acceptance of globalist initiatives, to ensure the debt slavery of future generations through the taxation of government-generated long-term debts, and to allow for internationalists to safely position their own assets. The three pillars are now being systematically removed by the same central bankers. Why? I believe that they are simply ready to carry on with the next stage of the controlled demolition of the American structure as we know it. Bailouts and quantitative easing, the first pillar removed. Net zero interest rates, the second pillar nearly removed. U.S. dollar world reserve status, the third pillar in progress of removal. The delusion that some economic analysts have been under is that the BRICS were strategically vying for power by building their own unified banking institution in opposition to the IMF and the West. As I presented in my last article, this has proven to be completely false. They were in fact positioning to take their place as puppets within the new global paradigm taking shape. China has now joined the IMF's SDR basket as predicted, and Russia, along with other BRICS, has openly called for the IMF to take control of the global monetary system. I will link below to this article. We need to get ready. Get out of debt as fast as you can. Stock up on food and water and beans, and live as simply as you can. This global currency reset is going to be especially hard on the poor. This is a long article, but this video, Christine Lagarde, on a new multilateralism for the global economy, is worth a watch. Hope you're all doing well. Get your finances in order, get your house in order, get your life in order, get your family and friends, get your group of people around you that are like-minded. Have a great day, everyone.